Okay, here we go. Here we go. I think I'm live over here too. There we go. All right. So we're cooking. We are cooking. Um. All right. So this is day 14 of the Diddy trial, and just wanted to come on here and just do a quick live. This live is not really going to be as long as my other lives were, mostly because today was just like a lot of just a rehash of what the defense was doing with Mia over the course of the past day or so. Okay, so we're not going to be really delving too deeply. I just again think that it was just a rehash of everything that they've already been doing with her, that Brian Steele has already been doing with her. So we're going to get into it. I like to start these off with just basically the people that I see in the courtroom. As you guys know, I'm in an overflow room. There's only a certain amount of people in the main courtroom. Um, and they allow 14 people in the 14 regular people, like just regular civilians. 14 people are allowed in the main courtroom. Okay, that's the room that Diddy is in. They allow something I think like 21 members of the press, and then there are a couple of rows that are designated for his friends and family, like close friends and family or whatever. And those rows are just not really filled, which I think it's crazy because it's like, if those rows aren't filled, then let some people in. Let people in, but it is what it is. Um, his sons, two of his sons did come today. Quincy came and also Justin came. Mama Combs was there as well. She came a little bit later on in the day. So that's that. All right, so let's just get right into it. Today we began with Mia's resume and how and just like how she is, you know what I mean? Different clients that she's worked for, and just her resume in general and stuff like that. Brian Steele also brought up what happened with the situation where she was trying to escape him when she was on the yacht and she was trying to leave, and they had her passport. Brian Steele brought up the fact that everyone's passport was basically, no one had their passport, so trying to imply that she wasn't singled out, like she wasn't the only one who didn't have a passport. Everyone else, other people didn't have a passport as well. Brian still asks her, "Are you a strong person?" And she says that she's good at teaching people, not enforcing things. And he asks her if she's a leader, and she basically is just like, "I don't really know about that, but So he says, "You speak up for yourself?" And she says, "No." I'm not surprised at that. Nothing about Mia's demeanor, nothing about her personality, from what I've seen, says anything to me about her being able to, speak up for herself. All right. But again, Brian Steele he's going to ask these questions and really try to make it seem like she's like this, really like super assertive person. And it's clear that she isn't. But anyway, he asks her, do you empower other people? And she says yes. So he basically goes back to when they parted ways, right, in March of 2017. And they just kind of go back and forth. Again, a lot of this stuff is rehashing the same stuff that we've seen already with her sending Diddy, complimentary text messages and things of that nature. And he really is just trying to hammer home the idea that if you were so traumatized by Diddy, you were so afraid and all of this stuff, why were you still sending complimentary text messages? Why were you still corresponding with him? So this is where we are again. Okay. So now we're in May 14th of 2020, and he's like, "Hey, so you've been gone for 3 years, right?" And she says yes. And again, more text messages back and forth. So she sent him a text message in August of 2020, basically telling Puff that she's thought of him because of Chadwick Boseman. And Combs responds to her, "How are you? Life is crazy." Again, just more, um, you know, back and forth text messages and stuff like that. So he asks her if she used to carry around a video cam, and she says yes. Did you know how to use it? She says yes. Do you have any recording of Mr. Combs berating you? And she said no, I wouldn't have been able to record that. So again, going back and forth with, you have this recording. What is the name of that video camera? I forgot what the name of it is. I had one. It was a video camera that people had like some years back. I want to say like some years back. I forgot the name of the video camera, but it was a real popular video camera, and you could put it into your computer and upload videos that you took. Please, someone in the comments, let me know what the name of that. I think it was a Flip. Yes, that's what it is. The Flip. That's what it is. So she was saying that she had he was saying, oh yeah, you had the Flip, blah blah blah. And so he basically, it's so funny to me because during the testimony, it's like I can kind of see where he's going. I don't know if Mia could see or understand where he was headed with the questioning, but it's like immediately I could just see what he was trying to do, right? So, you took all this footage, so you didn't have any type of footage of him berating you, abusing you, cursing at you, this, that, and the third. And again, she's just like, no, I wouldn't be able to tape that, right? And I feel like that's kind of like common sense. Like, if he was really yelling at her, you think that she could put a a flip rather, in his face and like tape that? But, it was playing out however it was playing out. I'm not going to say however. It was playing out well on his part, because he would ask these questions, these types of questions, and so many of them. And it just seemed like, how could you, tolerate, what you were going through? How are you going through all of this stuff? So anyway, let's keep going. So he asks, do you have any text messages of him berating you? Right? And of course she's like, no, I don't have anything like that. And he asks her if you ever said anything to people like in HR, you know what I mean? Like in the main office rather, or like whatever. Did you let people know, hey, what is going on? And she said, yes, she said things subtly, but she never really was like super forceful about stuff that she was going through. They go through more text messages in August of 2020, and she talks about how life is effing insane, and everything happens for a reason. I've been thinking about you, and I'm feeling your pain. He was going through something at the time, and Brian still asks her, do you have any random notes in your phone about Mr. Combs brutalizing you? Of course, she does not have anything like that. Do you have any notes to say that Mr. Combs was violent towards you? And she says, I would never have done that. I would never have anything like that in my phone. Okay. More text messages, more correspondence between Mia and Puff. Glad you're well. Please. Oh, Puff wants her to send footage of something that she had footage of, and he says, I only remember the good times, which I thought was interesting and was weird that the defense would bring that particular thing up, but okay. So he says, when Mr. Combs said, I only remember the good times, why didn't you say, I only remember the bad times? Like, why would he think that she would say that? But okay. She says, I wouldn't have said anything like that. And he said, isn't it true? This is Brian Steele now talking to Mia. Isn't it true that nothing you've said about Mr. Combs is true? And of course, there are a lot of moans and groans in the courtroom, like, oh my God, I can't believe that he said that. Basically saying, isn't it true that, all of this that you're saying, all your testimony is you're just full of crap and you're just lying about everything. And she said, I've never lied about anything in this courtroom and I never will. Okay. All right. So More text exchange about memories about stuff that they went through together. She brings up a time that crazy time when I guess they were around Mick Jagger and he tried to holler at her, right? There was another time where Puff apparently punched some guy in the face for bothering her. Um, and Brian still says, well, why would you say that? Oh, so she talked about how in a text exchange, she talks about how she didn't know how shitty people could be, and Brian Steele says to her, well, why would you say that? You didn't know how shitty people could be. Didn't you think he was being shitty towards you? And she says, basically that she was brainwashed. And he's like, by who? And she says, by Puff. So again, he's asking the same question over and over and over and over again. And he asks her, what does brainwashing mean? And she says that the highs were high and the lows were low. And this was something that she said many times throughout her testimony. And I understand why she was saying that. I understand why she was saying that. I'm going to wait until the end of the video. Again, it's not going to be a super long video. I'm going to wait till the end of the video to give my commentary. But basically, like I said, it's just like a rehash of what happened on Friday. Okay. She said that she was in an environment where abuse was normal, and she worked harder and harder to be treated nicely. And she was constantly seeking his approval. Uh, she says that he was her authority figure. And Brian Steele goes into when the Me Too movement sort of started going viral. Part of her, okay, thank you. Have a blessed day as well. Part of her testimony has been centered around when why aren't the comments showing up here? I don't know what's going on with these comments over here on Facebook. I don't know what's going on. Oh, Mary, yeah. Why would she say yes? Right. Okay. So uh part of her issue, right, as to why she didn't say anything was because the Me Too movement wasn't really a thing at the time and stuff like that. So he kind of, is going into, why later on she still continued to communicate with him, and Me Too was already a thing at that time. Okay. Um, she says that she was also afraid that Puff would tell Cassie what happened. Okay. Um, and she talks about how he was her authority figure. Okay. Um, Now, when she says that she was afraid that Puff would tell Cassie what happened, Puff wasn't threatening. Puff wasn't threatening, um, Mia to say, "Oh, you know, there was SA involved." That's not what he was threatening. What he was basically threatening was that he was going to tell Cassie that she willingly had relations with him. Okay? That's what he would hold over her head, allegedly, and threaten her with. So he said, why didn't you say anything in 2017, 2018, 2019? Like, why didn't you feel like you had a moral obligation to say anything? And she basically said when she started to see him being held accountable is when she felt safe enough to really come out and say something. Okay. And remember, it wasn't until 2023 until that was when Cassie, did her lawsuit, right? It wasn't at the end of 2023. I think it was in November or December of 2023 is when that lawsuit came about, right? Or was it 2024? I think it was 2023. And at this point, I made a notation here that when is this going to end? I can't begin to explain to you how at this point it really felt like he was dragging things, all right? Um, people were really, really just like huffing and puffing. Even people that I was noticing around me who are sort of pro Puff were like, okay, like you kind of dragging it now. Okay, so he keeps going though. So there's a photo of a text messages. There's a photo of a text message, and in the text message, she basically is saying, "Hey Puff, thinking about you. Wanted to thank you for coming to my hometown. My grandmother went into hospice, so unfortunately, I won't be able to attend." And she puts a bunch of heart emojis, and apparently it's Beach Week. Pharrell wanted to have a festival there to sort of bring attention to police brutality. And Brian Steele asks her, why would you say that you wanted to go or whatever? So she basically said, look, I didn't really want to go. I was saying that unfortunately I can't be there because it would have been expected that she of course would go if he's in her hometown. Like, why wouldn't she go? Okay. So Brian Steele basically, he's like, all your text messages were kind and loving, and she said yes. And they show text messages from 2022, casual conversation, happy holidays, blah blah blah. And Puff says, how you doing? I'm doing great. I'm sending you, love and light. And Brian still again reiterates, you're still having conversations with someone who you were terrorized by years later. The prosecution, I don't want you to think that they weren't objecting to a lot of this. They were absolutely objecting to a lot of this, okay? Like constantly, all right? And again, it's just a rehash of what was happening on Friday. On Friday, we went through a lot of similar stuff, and Brian Steele is just like literally doing the same thing over and over again, asking the same questions in different ways, constantly over and over and over and over again, okay? Now, I don't know if you remember, if you guys were around for my last live. Quick thing, if you're watching on TikTok, please give me a follow. I would really, really appreciate it. And if you're watching on Facebook, please share this video. I would really appreciate if you share it in real time. It really helps out when you share it in real time, okay? There was an infamous video that Brian Steele wanted to have entered, you know, into court, okay? And this video was a video of Mia singing Happy Birthday. And one of the main reasons why they wanted to put this video in was because in the video she seems very assertive and just, not really assertive so much as just like, just like, hey, happy birthday. And, she wasn't like meek and quiet like her demeanor is on the stand. She's more of herself, like, and by herself, I mean, like, just comfortable, right? They really tried to get this video put in on Friday. The defense tried to get it in. There were multiple sidebars about it. Paul, did you say you share this video? What? What are you saying, Paul? No, you share this video, please. I can't. I'm on it now. So how am I going to share it? I don't. You mean share it to like different pages? So they really tried to get this video in, okay? Multiple sidebars back and forth, and ultimately the video was not able to be put in. And they tried to bring it in on impeachment, meaning the judge basically said, look, you can ask Mia a question, and if she is not truthful with her answer, you can put the video in as, proof as you're lying. But he asked her questions and still tried to get that video in on Friday. And like I said, on Friday, he really thought he was going to do his big one, honey. And oh, okay, you're kidding. Okay. And she was truthful, and he couldn't get that video in. Okay. He could not get the video in. That was on Friday, where this is another day now. Okay. So now we're at this point now, and Brian still says, can you listen to this audio? And the judge lets her listen to the audio. She listens to the audio, And I wrote in my note here, I said I'm assuming that this is the infamous birthday video. So it was. So she was listening to it and she was like, okay. So he asks her, he says, did you make this video? And she says, yes. And they end up showing the video. I can't even begin to tell you how anticlimactic this was. All right. Now, from what I understand, the video was already leaked by academics. Apparently, academics has been, DJ academics has been covering this story, covering this case. I don't follow DJ Academics anymore. I did follow him at one point, a long time ago, but I can't follow him anymore because it's too much dust and ash for me. Okay, do I think he is immensely talented? Do I think that he's a hard worker? Do I think that you know, he's out here doing his thing? And yes, I can never take that away from him. However, he his behavior and a lot of his commentaries is too much for me. Okay, and even the fact that he had already shown this particular video when this girl is supposed to be, Mia was supposed to be anonymous. Okay, so the fact that he showed the video and quote unquote doxed her, I'm not surprised at that. I think that is real corny, but I don't expect anything less from him. All right, so again, the video has already been out. It made the rounds all weekend long. Maybe this is another reason why they allowed that video in. Okay, but again, it was very anticlimactic. In the video, she's like, happy birthday, Puff. And she's referencing Revolt, which obviously Diddy owns Revolt, right? And she's, I think, drinking water that is something like something else that he has like some type of ownership in, like this particular brand of water she's drinking. And the video was like super short, and it is what it is. And okay, so the video was let in. Okay, and again, it was very, very anticlimactic. Where there's a break, the judge says, "Hey, let's take a break," and we all go to, well, not all of us, but I went to the cafeteria. And like I said before, at the cafeteria is where you definitely see Jerry ain't talented. You don't think DJ Academics is talented? I think DJ Academics is very, 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 very talented. I do. I don't agree with things that he says. I don't agree with a lot of the things that he says, but I don't think that you could say that he's untalented. He appeals to a certain demographic, but if you're on live for 6 hours, and you're still able to keep an audience, even if that audience is a bunch of incels, right? You're still able to keep this audience. You understand your niche, and maybe he's exploiting these people, however you want, if you want to look at it that way. But I don't think that he's untalented, and that's that. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, anybody who understands me or knows anything about me would know that I don't like the things that he says at all. Do I think he's a good person? No. Do I think he's a nice person? No. Do I like him as a person? Absolutely not. But I can't take away the fact that he is very successful and he knows what he's doing. You know what I mean? So, but that's that. So we're in the cafeteria, and the cafeteria is basically, you can see some of the people that are there to see Puff and stuff like that, and they kind of like go in there to get a sandwich or whatever. And I have to say that I couldn't help but feel a little, so I saw Quincy there, right? I saw them on their way into the courthouse today, Quincy and also Justin, right? And I saw them there in the cafeteria, and I have to say I do feel kind of bad for them. And I know that people will say, "Oh, don't feel bad for them. They're not angels. They're whatever. They're wealthy, and don't worry about them and stuff like that." But I don't know. Like, they don't want to be there, right? I don't know them personally. I only know what I've seen, and I've seen them multiple times, and nothing about either one of their demeanor denotes young men who are nasty, mean, evil, or anything like that. They really, really are not. And have always, they always are conducting themselves in a very respectful manner. And I just felt bad for them. I ain't gonna lie to you. I do feel kind of bad for them. You know, um, Mary, I haven't seen anything but his incel rants on streams and a couple of episodes of that podcast with Joe Budden to call him talented. Listen, I look, y'all got it, okay? I'm definitely not going to go to bat for him like that. You know what I mean? It is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, um, and that's it. That's it. I'm not sticking up for no academics. I'm definitely not. So y'all definitely got it, because I definitely don't like him. I don't like him at all. Like, as a person, I don't like him. Um, Paul, I feel bad for them. They didn't ask for their father. I do. I really, really do. Christian wasn't there. Not Christian. I'm sorry. King. Yeah, no, Christian. Yeah, King Combs wasn't there. That's the one that people are saying, has similar allegations and stuff. Not people are saying, there is an actual civil case. And there's been some evidence, leaked in that we've heard of him perhaps harassing a girl, or trying to, essay a girl, or violate her in some type of way. We've heard of this, right? But again, I don't know, if that's something we haven't been presented with all the evidence with that. I'm not saying that it's not true. It very well could be true. Okay. But just in general, as far as his sons are concerned, like, just seeing them there like that in the cafeteria, he's there ordering his food, or they're going to go sit down and eat their food, they're quiet. You could look at them and see, like, it's just not a good time for them. And okay, so we'll just end that there. That's that. All right, so we're coming back. Thank you so much, Vincent, for the stars. I really appreciate it. Very, very nice of you. Very thoughtful of you. I really, really appreciate. Really, really appreciate it. And thank you so much for everybody who's followed me on TikTok. Definitely trying to grow this TikTok. Love the community over here on this side. I love my community here on Facebook. I've known everybody here a lot longer, and I have like a good amount of followers here on Facebook. But I definitely really, really am starting to love this community over here on TikTok as well. Love the energy over here too. Mama said, I want to go sit with Quincy. You know what's so funny about Quincy? He's super friendly and sweet and nice. Like, if you came and you were like, hey, can I sit with you? I would bet my salary that he would be like, yeah. He's so approachable, sweet and nice, and extremely handsome in person. Looks just like his biological father. Like, he's very, very, very attractive. They all are, though. They all of them are. Academics trashes black women and really has the same energy for men. Academics has the same energy for certain types of men. Academics has the same energy for men that he thinks are not going to come back at him. So I've seen academics say ridiculous stuff about dudes. He's going to say stuff about dudes who are not going to come back in a certain way. Okay? That being said, he doesn't come outside. So he can talk all this smack. And a lot of the men who he talks about won't say anything back because they don't want to give him that energy. You understand what I'm saying? They don't want to give him the energy. But if they were to see him in person, I think that it would be a completely different thing. And he doesn't come outside. You see what happened with Saucy Santana. You see what happened there, right? All right, so we're back from the break. The prosecutor, basically, she had a lot to say when we came back from the break, and she was really, really pissed off, okay? She was very, very upset, and she basically said, look, I want to talk about this. She was like, I want to say this so it's on the record. And she basically said that the reason she wants to say this and have this on the record is because the transcripts, right? The transcripts are not going to really tell the tale of what she feels is going on. Okay. Vincent said academics is still being around after the situation with the 15-year-old boy is crazy. And Saucy Santana is from Bridgeport, Jackson. I don't doubt it. Okay. Look, academics still being around after that 15 situation with the 15-year-old boy is crazy. But I'm not surprised. Okay, I'm definitely not surprised. I'm going to talk back about that in a second. So she said that she wants this to be on the record because when you're reading a transcript, of the proceedings, you don't really get the vibe. You don't get the vocal inflection. You don't get what's really happening. You don't get that feeling when you're just reading the transcript. And I I I do agree with her as far as the feeling that Brian Steele was absolutely harassing Mia. The reason I'm saying that he was harassing her was not because he wasn't doing his job. He was doing his job. He's supposed to go back and forth with her. He's supposed to challenge her. But it gets to a point where it's argumentative. It's harassing. Okay? It gets to the point where it's like you're asking the same question over and over and over again. And the question has been asked and answered. And after the question is asked and answered, you come around and then ask it in a different way, and she would answer it, and he would just go back and forth over and over and over again. Again, like I said, there were multiple objections. Okay? So, again, she came back and she's like, look, the transcript is not going to do this justice. She said that Steele was harassing and very argumentative. All the exhibits have nothing to do with her credibility. Showing had to be at least maybe 30 something exhibits of text messages back and forth with her and Puff, and her saying things that were complimentary to Diddy. Okay. And again, doesn't have anything to do with her credibility. There was not one time during Mia's testimony where she was caught, quote unquote, caught in a lie. Not one. Not once. And you could look at anybody else's commentary. You could look at anybody's video, any news outlet, and you're not going to see any time, not one time, that she was caught in a lie. Her testimony never changed. Okay? So when the prosecutor references multiple text messages and a bunch of exhibits of her and Diddy having conversations with each other, at no point did it prove that she was lying about anything. She said that Mia has carried herself with grace, and she also mentioned the fact that there are eyes on this trial. How is Mama Cone's reaction in all of this? Is she a sweet lady? Yeah, she is. She really, really is. In other lives that I've done, unfortunately, I don't think y'all can see that on TikTok, because if I go live on TikTok, when I post it, I can't save it. But you can follow me on Facebook too. My Facebook is Shanoa Lawrenson, so it's Chenoa, and my last name, which is Laurencin. Shanoa is my middle name. My first name is actually Rashana, but I go by Shanoa Lawrenson on Facebook. So there's other videos that I have up there where I go into me actually, because I met her many, many years ago. And when I first met her, we're going back almost 30 years, right? And this is when Diddy had Justin's. And I remember meeting her there and having multiple conversations with her there, because me and my friends used to go there all the time. So when I saw her recently at the courthouse, I had a couple of conversations with her, and I told her that I met her at Justin's, and she asked me, she said, was it the Justin's in Atlanta or the one in New York? And I said, no, it was the one in New York. Listen, tell me how to save the lives, please, Little Mermaid. I don't know how to do this. So I said it was the one in New York, and she was like, okay. And I said, every time I went there, you would always come up to me and my friends and say, hi, I'm Janice Combs. And you would shake our hand, and I put my hand out, and she put her hand in my hand, and she said, oh, okay. And she said, all right. You know what I mean? So she's very, very sweet, very, very nice, very, very approachable. Again, I don't know what happened with Diddy growing up. I don't know anything about that. Okay, there people have said things, as to his upbringing. I do not know. Okay, but what I can see from her now is she's again extremely approachable, very sweet, very very nice, and that's all I know. Okay, so the prosecutor went into the fact that there are people watching these proceedings. There are people who are victims of SA and DV and things like that who are watching these proceedings and watching Brian Steele's demeanor with Mia. Okay, and again, in no way, somebody commented on, because I put like a little piece, a little portion of a video on my TikTok, and it asked me, hey, do you want to put this clip? And I just said yes. So one of the clips I put was that Brian Steele was acting like sort of obtuse, um, as it relates to him, you know, understanding that, or understanding why Mia would still send complimentary text messages to Diddy if she was an alleged an alleged victim of, DV or SA. And someone commented and was like, you see, this is why I don't like to get hear biased reporters or biased reporting. And it's just like, yo, I'm not a reporter. Like, I'm just here blogging. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not a reporter. I'm definitely going to give my commentary. I'm going to give my commentary, and I'm going to give my opinion. Okay? Now, am I telling you the truth with my notes and stuff like that? I'm absolutely telling you the truth. But yeah, I'm going to give my commentary. I don't work for ABC News. You know what I mean? I don't work for NBC. I'm going to give you my commentary and my opinion. And I've said over and over again, Brian Steele is doing his job. He's doing what he's supposed to do. Okay? But um is he being argumentative? Is it overkill? It absolutely is. It absolutely is. All right? So again, the prosecution is saying that eyes are on this trial, and she says this victim should be protected from harassment. Judge Subramanian says, look, I don't feel like he's been sarcastic, because the prosecutor accused Brian Steele of being sarcastic. He says, look, I don't feel like he's being sarcastic, or I don't feel like he's, yelled or, anything like that. And he did say, as far as him being argumentative, yes, I do feel as though he's asking the same questions over and over again. And the tone is on the line. Okay? Now, what Judge Subramanian did say is he feels as though Brian Steele is asking the same questions over and over again because he wants to get a certain type of question that doesn't belong out there, and kind of wants the jury to hear that. And he is not comfortable with that. Okay? Now, I will say that after this exchange, after the prosecutor said this, the tone was a little bit different. Okay? It definitely was. So now Brian Steele says that this morning I was alerted of some photographs. And now, mind you, we're back from the break, but the jury is not in yet. Okay? The defense and the prosecution are having this back and forth. And remember I told you that the prosecutor wanted to get her complaint on the record, so on and so forth. Jury's still not there. Mia's still not back on the stand or anything like that. Okay? So Brian Stills is like, yeah, this morning I was alerted of some photographs. So the judge is like, well, can I see these photographs? And Brian Stills says yes. And he shows Judge Subramanian these photographs. The photographs are of Mia at different events or hanging out with her friends and family and stuff like that. And one of the reasons why Mia said that she wasn't really able to discuss, or she didn't really want to tell what happened or any type of abuse with her friends and family is because she didn't really have time to, and stuff like that. So he wanted to show, yeah, you do have time. You had time to chill and hang out with your friends and family. You went to this wedding and you went to this event and you were at the beach this day. You didn't say anything about it. So this is what he wanted to show. And the judge was basically like, no. Like you're not showing that. Like you're not going to just be showing a whole bunch of photos of her with her friends and family like and he said this is highly prejudicial. Okay? This is what the judge said. Oh no, I'm sorry. He said grossly prejudicial. Okay, so that was the end of that. And of course, they went back and forth, but Judge Subramanian was like basically no, no, no. Like I said no, that's it. So Mia comes back to the stand finally. Okay, so now we're back, you know, to this back and forth of the same stuff over and over again. And Brian still says, so you said you were best friends with Miss Ventura, and she says yes. And he says, did you love her? And she says yes. And Brian still says, so that relationship still lasts today? And she says yes. And he says, well, you wouldn't lie to her, right? And she says, well, not about something that she was forced to lie about. So basically, what she's trying to say is when Puff said certain things, I had to stay quiet, you know, like maybe if he was somewhere that he wasn't really supposed to be or something, and maybe Cassie was looking for him or something. Um, she's not going to be like, well, girl, you know, he was, you know, at such and such or whatever. She's not going to say something like that. Okay. So this is what she's talking about. Kima, what you mean you about to go underground? Where you going underground to? Um, okay. So, uh, Brian still asks her, did you ever suggest that she should get away? And she says, not in the way that she would have wanted to. Um, and he says, well, did you ever tell her? Okay, so this was another exchange. So basically, what's happening here is Brian still is trying to insinuate that, you know, Mia should have been more forceful with trying to encourage Cassie to get away from him. Okay. And he brings up the time that Mia tells Cassie that Puff's brain needs to be rewired. Okay. So there was a time where Diddy, you know, did something or he acted out or he was violent. There was something that he did. And basically Mia tells Cassie that Puff was, you know, throwing a tantrum and his brain needs to be rewired. And Brian still is basically saying that you should have used that opportunity to discuss how horrible Diddy was if you felt so traumatized and threatened by him and he was so abusive. Why didn't you use that opportunity to talk about how awful and terrible he was as opposed to just saying that his brain needs to be rewired? And again, we go into him asking the same questions over and over again. And now the prosecutor asks for a sidebar. Now we're back. Do you remember telling your sister, and he's referring to Cassie, because remember, Brian still asks Mia, so you would refer to Cassie as your sister, right? And she's like, yeah. So when they come back, the first thing right out the gate after the sidebar is, so do you remember telling your sister? And as soon as he says your sister, Judge Subramanian cuts him off. And he's just like, look, like, I think that the judge was so really, really annoyed with Brian Steele. Like, he really, really was annoyed with him. It was getting to the point where, like I said, he cut him off. It wasn't even that the prosecutor had to say objection. The judge, numerous times today, was cutting him off. Like, just cutting him off. Okay? Brian still asks, why would you stick up for him? And again, another objection by the prosecutor, and the judge sustains the you know, the objection. And at this point, the judge tells him, like, you got to move on now. Like, you really got to move on. Okay. So then Brian still asks her, why would you go to bat for him? And she explained that one of the worst things that would happen is that she would be kind of put in the middle of the two of them. um she didn't like having to be put in a position to either go to bat for him or anything like that. She just hated it, and she knew that if she even tried to really hint to Cassie like, hey, you should leave him, it would most likely get back to him, and she would get into trouble. Okay. um Multiple objections back and forth. Why wouldn't you just tell her to leave? And she brought up the fact that he had access to their phones, and he had, tracking devices on her vehicles and stuff like that. Diddy was the one who was paying for everybody's phone. Diddy was the one who was paying for everything, all the cars, the apartments. He was paying for all of that, so he had access to everything. Okay, so no, she's not gonna text message Cassie, hey, you should leave, or she's not gonna do anything like that, because eventually he would see it. So then he's like, well, weren't you alone with her? Why wouldn't you say, again, back and forth, asking the same questions over and over again. Um, so Brian still asks about the mediation where she received the settlement. So in one of my other lives, I talked about the fact that she worked several hours a day. I think she was making something like 65K per year, and she was working like a gazillion hours every day. Okay. Truth Seeker. Um, Wait, hold on a second. Let me go back. Let me go back a little bit because I want to get some of these comments. Okay. Somebody says Diddy's case is so weak. Um, well, I think that the prosecution, as of this moment, is putting on a good case. I do. As far as Diddy's case, I'm not sure about that, because the defense hasn't put on his case yet. They're gonna go in maybe about another, I want to say maybe 3 weeks or so. We're gonna start to see the defense put on their case, and then they'll bring their witnesses and stuff like that. And then um, obviously the prosecution will cross-examine and do what they have to do. Um, so we'll see what happens with that. Is the defense doing a good job defending Diddy? I think they're doing a good job. They're doing what they're supposed to do. I will say this, okay, and I don't want to go too far. I want to get through this. I don't want people to start leaving and stuff like that. But as far as the defense is concerned, to me, okay, with the situation that happened with Mia and her text messages to Diddy and her complimentary social media posts, okay, that she made, about Diddy and added Diddy in these things, right? To me, that is low hanging fruit. Like, if you're saying that someone has SA'd you or has been, violent towards you, and you have this huge, like, digital footprint of all the things that you've said about them, like, anyone with like a teeny piece of a brain would bring that up in court if you're defending Diddy. So I've seen Brian Steele Brian Steele's testimony been referred to like as, or I've seen his testimony referred to as masterful and things of that nature. I don't know. What would you do if you were defending Diddy? What would you do, like, as a lay person, as lay people in these comments right now? What would you do? Wouldn't you bring those things up? Well, here you said this, and here you said that. So is that masterful? I guess. Okay. Um, which is why, I guess maybe it's a crapshoot as to why they chose to put Mia on the stand. They knew, the prosecution knew this was out there. They knew this was out there. Everyone knew this was out there. Okay, so there's that. Okay, and it boils down to whether you believe her, whether you believe her. Do you believe these things happen? If you believe these things happen, if you believe he did these things to her, then you believe it. If you don't, then you don't. You know what I mean? Um, Paul says he's trying to ask questions that provoke public pressure through social media. That tactic is so tired, yet becoming really tired. I do believe that he is doing that. And Paul, that's a great point that you brought up, because I'm going to say something else very soon that proves that, okay? I believe that a lot of the things that the defense has done has been to for social media purposes. You know, he'll say something very provocative or like something real crazy, and then you go to Instagram 10 minutes later and the neighborhood talk or the shade room, you know, has it there. Because remember, inner city press, because you're not allowed to have your phone in or any type of electronic device in court, period. There are some members of the press that do have that privilege, and even some members of the press who have the privilege of having an electronic device in court are not allowed to live tweet or text in court. You're not even allowed to, like, I have a smartwatch here. I have to take it off and give them this when I first get to court. I have to give them my cell phone. I have an iPod I used to, when I do my, you know, teach my workout classes and stuff. I have to give all that stuff up when I enter court, okay? Inner City Press is one of the few outlets that is actually able to have his electronic device in court and live tweet in court. And this is where a lot of people get their information from. So again, there'll be something real crazy that's said, something very provocative that's said, and the people from the Shade Room, Neighborhood Talk, and these other, you know, blogs, they're watching, and they will go ahead and just post that like right now, okay? And I think that that's what the defense is doing. They're kind of like doing this for social media. So, Mary said, crazy, this whole thing sounds like Friday. I'd be tired of his shenanigans just like the judge. Girl, I'm telling you, I told you, even people who were like, you know, sort of pro Diddy or just like, you really dragging it now. And I'm going to go into that a little bit further later on as to why I think he was doing that. How is pushing it and annoying the judge good for the defense? It's not, but let me tell you something. This judge is like, I feel like he goes out of his way to be super fair, okay? I don't see him leaning either way, like more heavily to the defense or more heavily to the prosecution. I don't see him doing any of that. It's like he like really goes out of his way to be very, very, very fair. So, you know, although again, I agree with you. I don't think that it's good to annoy or antagonize anybody. Okay. So thank you, Truth Seeker, for your comment. And Suave said that means nothing. That's why they there. I guess I'm too far on to know why you said that. So if you want to comment back and reiterate what you said, all the witnesses contradicting themselves. Actually, no, all the witnesses are not contradicting themselves. And it's funny because I don't know, why would you say that? Because I think that if you're not privy to like the testimony and like you're not there, I don't know if you can really say that. And I'm not saying that to insult you, but it's just like you're not there like daily, or not even daily, because I'm not there daily, but I've been there many, many times. And no, these people are not contradicting themselves. They're really, really not. The only person that I would say that had an issue with their testimony to me was Dawn. That was the only one that had an issue with their testimony. And the issue with her testimony was whether Diddy hit Cassie with the skillet, you know, that she was using she was using to cook the eggs, or whether he threw it at her. There was some contradiction there, but I have not seen anyone since then that has contradicted any of their testimony. Like, I have not seen anything like that, and Mia certainly has not contradicted her testimony at all, not even one time. not even one time. So there's that. What's Mia's real name? I'm not saying that because technically she still is anonymous, but it's out there. Go on DJ Academics, and he definitely he doxed her, I think, like from Friday. Okay, so you can definitely go see who she is. If you watched a reality show that had to do with Diddy, then you probably will recognize her. And I'll just like leave it there. I'm definitely not gonna be saying her name or nothing like that because I don't even have really no following yet, and I'm not trying to kill my joint before it even starts. Entire case based on Cassie testimony, no evidence of any of this tracking, all hearsay. Um, the entire case is not just based on Cassie's testimony. Um, entire case based on Cassie lawsuit. Okay, we're going back and forth with that, and that's not accurate. Bottom line, none of them wanted to leave the money and fame, sacrifice their self and freedom for nothing. Um. Okay, so that's not a fair statement to me. And it's so funny because I feel like a lot of the time people insert themselves into what's happening with these types of things, and it's not about how you would act in a situation like this. It's about what the people who are actually experiencing these things were going through and not how you necessarily might have acted. And I've said this in other lives, and I'm gonna just kind of, I don't want to say too much stuff here because I'm getting into this, and then like I'm not getting into what's happening here, but the this is about these people's careers and about their lives and about what they really wanted to do with their lives. So if you're a nurse, okay, and you went to school for nursing, and this is your career as a nurse, and you go to a hospital and you're working for somebody who's like really powerful, and they threaten you, um, and they're like, hey, you're not going to work at any hospital ever again unless you do XYZ, right? What are you supposed to do? I mean, I'm serious. Like, I think that people get it twisted because these are people who work in the entertainment industry, so F them. You know what I mean? Like, you're part of, like, this industry where there's all this sin and all this stuff going on. So who cares about your livelihood? Who cares that this is your career? Who cares that this is what you want to do? This is all you wanted to do. Go do something else. Why should you be forced to do that? Why is the onus on the person who's experiencing the trauma and the abuse and the person who's being harassed and threatened? Why is the onus on that person? Why are you not looking at the person who is powerful and in charge? Why are you not telling them to not threaten somebody? That's a weird take to me. But this is just indicative of where we are as a society. And again, it's not about what you would do. It's about what like happened, right? So anyway, child, wait till the defense comes. Prosecution so weak they only go in 5 weeks. I mean, if you want to look at it as if the prosecution is so weak that they're only going 5 weeks, I don't know. I think that the prosecution feels like it's not necessary to go further than 5 weeks. It's gonna go further though because the defense is absolutely dragging it. So it's not gonna go 5 weeks, and Brian Steele absolutely dragged it today because he wanted it to go all the way to the end, and he wasn't able to. So let me try to get past some of this stuff, okay? I gotta just keep going. I gotta keep going because then I'll end up just answering all these questions, and then I won't get through the thing. And I don't want to start losing people, okay? So I'll give my commentary after, and then if you guys want to stay live with me longer on TikTok, we can go all night long if you want, okay? All right, so all right, so Brian Steele talks about mediation where she received her settlement, okay? And this was a huge thing. They went back and forth about why she didn't bring up SA, okay? And he shows a photo of her and Puff holding his private area, and allegedly this is a text message exchange that she sent to Diddy. And she says she does not remember sending this text message to him. And he asks her, did you tell Cassie about SA after learning about the lawsuit? And she said no. She was still deeply ashamed. All right. So where he's going with this is he's trying to imply that Mia met with the government something like 20 something times and didn't bring up any type of issue with SA until she got legal representation. Okay. And he tried to kind of be slick and imply that she got a specific lawyer after learning that they got a large settlement. So there are multiple objections here, and the judge asked for a sidebar. Okay. Mia retained legal representation because anybody who's going to court needs a lawyer. She was asked on direct examination if she has any pending lawsuits or anything like that, and she said no. So Mia's not suing Diddy or anything like that. She received money through mediation because she worked multiple hours of overtime and all kinds of stuff, and did not receive overtime pay and stuff like that. And she had lawyers helping her, other lawyers helping her with that, and they got a little less than half of the $400,000 settlement. Okay, so I think they got, I don't know, something like maybe 170K, and she got the rest, and that's all she got, and she's not asking for any more money at all. Okay. um so she and Brian still go back and forth, and he's asking her, um you know, about the instance with the Prince party. Because remember, they went and snuck out and went to a party that Prince was throwing, and Diddy tried to assault Cassie at the party, and Prince's security team basically weren't having it and didn't let Diddy assault Cassie at this party. This is not alleged, like this happened, okay? It's so weird how like people just gloss over those things, right? But okay, child, like it's okay to like physically assault her, we're just gonna, gloss over that, but okay, child. Okay. All right. So, um and at this point he basically just says to her, uh aren't you lying about what you're saying? Aren't you lying about everything? And she says no. Didn't you just make this stuff up? And she says no. Okay. um he's asking her if she had time to spend with her family, and she says yes, few and far between. He's trying to get these photographs. Remember, I mentioned the photographs about the photographs of her hanging out with her friends and family. He wants to try to get these photos in on impeachment, right? So she's honest, as she's been this whole time, and says, yes, I was able to go here and there, but she was always under his thumb. Like, she could go to the occasional event, she could go to the occasional wedding, she could go, here and there, but she always had to get permission, and she couldn't stay long. Remember, she was working for him for 8 years. Okay. Then he says, you waited until 2024 to talk about SA. And she said no, she talked about it with her therapist. Okay. But as far as talking to prosecutors about it, she didn't talk to prosecutors about it until she had legal representation. So he was implying that there was something nefarious there. But again, she is not trying to sue him or anything like that. So I don't know why he kept trying to say that. He said, you wanted to join the Me Too money grab. Objection. You met with the government 27 times, and she said, I don't remember how many times specifically, but it was quite a bit. Okay, so there was a break at that time. Okay, and I think maybe like a 15-minute break or something like that. And now we're back from the break, and Diddy is kind of like shuffling through papers, and kind of going through things, and people are just kind of like shifting around, going through stuff and looking at their paperwork and stuff like that. And uh, the judge is like, all right, so we're back in court now. And one thing I noticed about Mia is like she doesn't make eye contact with like anybody. You know what I mean? She's constantly looking down and stuff like that, and she just doesn't make eye contact with anybody. She doesn't make eye contact with the prosecutor. She doesn't make eye contact with the defense. Although her testimony has been consistent and nothing has changed over the course of this past, few days, she does not make eye contact with anybody. Brian Still says there's no mention of SA before 2024, and he shows a picture of Cassie and says, so you said that there were bruises on her arm, and she said, yes, I believe it happened the night before. So this photo of Cassie is, now he's trying to cast doubt, okay? Read and do less running your mouth. The recap of the testimony is boring. Why are you here? That's a weird thing to say. Read and do less running your mouth. Dahlia, you can go to so many other people and watch what they have to say. Girlfriend or boyfriend, whoever you are, honey, please go over there and look at that. I am going to give my testimony, not my testimony, but my commentary, because it's my social media. So if you don't like it, respectfully, like, go somewhere else, okay? I mean, I appreciate you. I'm boring. You're still here. So I can't be that boring, sweetie, okay? So thank you, lovable Libra. Thank you, okay? And if you're not following me, please follow me on TikTok, okay? Thank you so much. All right, so, Brian Still, he shows a photo of Cassie, and he says, you said there were bruises on her arm, and she said, yes, I believe it happened the night before. So now this photo of Cassie was the day after the situation at the hotel. Remember at the hotel, the infamous situation that happened with CNN, okay? This was right before her movie premiere, right? Remember, she didn't want to do the freak off. She didn't want to do the freak off because she knew that the freak off, was going to be several days, right? And she didn't want to look crazy and feel crazy. She wanted to look good and refreshed for her movie premiere, but Diddy insisted that they do the freak off, and she ended up getting into an altercation with him. Remember, he hit her, okay? So he did hit her, okay? We all saw that, right? And the photo that they're showing is of Cassie. Remember, she had like a bruise on her arm. So Brian Steele said bruises, and in the picture there is a bruise. So he's right there trying to question, credibility and stuff like that. He's like, okay, and you said that there was a bruise under her eye, and you can't see the bruise under her eye because whoever did her makeup did a great job, okay? So you can't really see that. So he tried to sneak that in, okay? Brian still asks her to read like a bunch of documents, and as he's asking her to read the documents, he sits down in his chair. He flops down in the chair. It's so dramatic. She's there reading through documents. Basically, he's still trying to sort of hammer home the idea that she didn't bring up anything that had to do with SA or anything like that until she got legal representation. And again, we're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth about the same thing over and over again. He asked her if she's worked since she, parted ways with Sean Combs, and she said yes, she worked for Madonna. Supposed to be for 3 months, but then it was extended to 8 months. And she wasn't blacklisted because Madonna, according to her, didn't care about anything that had to do with her previous employment with anybody, and she was allowed to work with Madonna. And Brian still tried to imply that she was let go for being late and drinking, and she said absolutely not. Brian still talks about various songs and artists that Cassie has worked with, and he's basically like, hey, Cassie worked with multiple artists, Lil Wayne, Nicki Minaj, and all of these people, French Montana, Kid Cudi, and a lot of people. She's, had modeling opportunities, photo shoots. She was in movies, The Perfect Match, Honey 3. She went, you guys went to film festivals and stuff like that, and basically trying to say, like, hey, Diddy did do a lot for her career. He has not, hindered her career, right? And she went to the Met Gala, and she went to the Grammys, and she went to the VMAs, and uh, Mia says yes, she went. We went to all these things. So, um, and Brian still says, well, this was with the knowledge and consent of Sean Combs, and she says yes. Um, he talks about when she said that she was going. Remember, she said that when she found out that she was no longer working with Puff, when she wasn't working with him anymore, she said that she wanted to unalive herself, and he said it's because you loved and wanted that job, and she said I wanted to continue my career. Brian still says, do you know how much money went into artists on the label? And she is not quite sure exactly how much money went into other artists in comparison to Cassie, but obviously Brian still wants to. Um, he's basically trying to say, like, Bad Boy put a lot of money into Cassie, because the narrative is uh, that Diddy was hindering Cassie's career and didn't put any money behind her, right? This is what the prosecution has said. Um, and Brian still is basically trying to paint it like Cassie was being promoted more than other artists. And Mia is basically saying, like, I don't know exactly how much other artists were getting in comparison to her. Okay. And Brian still sort of confers with Puff, and they're kind of talking to each other. And he leaves Puff, comes back to the like little podium area where he was talking, and Puff hands one of the other lawyers a piece of paper. I don't know what was on this piece of paper. Um, Brian still asks if Cassie was jealous that Puff was spending time with other women, and Mia says, well, she wasn't thrilled about it, and she says, thank you. She says, do you remember an incident when Puff slammed your arm? So I don't know if you remember, this was a while back, in Mia's testimony, where she talked about Diddy basically slamming her arm in a door, and Brian still is saying, well, you didn't scream, and she said no, she was just basically, shocked and surprised. um and he also talks about her when she said that she didn't get sleep and she was up for several days, and she used to take extended release Adderall. Okay, this is what he's saying here. There is no actual proof of her getting her arm slammed in the door, even though she said that there were multiple people around. There is nobody that is corroborating that he slammed her arm in the door. And the fact that she didn't outright scream and people didn't come to her aid and she didn't get first aid, then she's lying about that. She's also lying about being awake for 5 days. Okay, this is the thing. Okay, well, again, let me save my commentary for later, for after. um he asked her if she spoke to human resources about the things that happened, and she said yes. She spoke to Vashta. I don't know if you remember Vashta being brought up previously. Okay, she's one of the people who worked in HR. Okay, and she absolutely brought these things up to Vashta. And she says she sent emails to Vashta about the fact that she was exhausted and she's not getting any sleep, and she did send emails. All right, so that was the end of that. The cross-examination of Mia was finally done. Like, after all this time, it was finally done. Okay, and when I tell you, the mood in the courtroom, again, even with people who were sort of pro Puff was like, oh my God, finally. All right. And the reason why that cross examination ultimately ended was because the prosecutor told the judge, look, this next person that we're supposed to be interviewing, I'm not interviewing, but this person who's supposed to be testifying, uh, they have a flight like in the next, like at 8 o'clock. They gotta leave. So if we don't get her on the stand tonight, she's not gonna be able to go back. And that's how they were able to wrap it up. I believe that Brian Steele absolutely wanted to run the clock the same way that we all marinated on Mia's testimony and how he, basically ripped her to pieces. He wanted to carry this over into overnight, more ripping her to pieces. And again, the only reason why he wasn't able to go any further and had to wrap it up was because of this situation. And the judge was like, yeah, okay. So that's that. Now on redirect, she basically, this is the prosecutor basically, you know, did you post on social media as part of your job? Yes. Okay. Remember, a lot of Brian Steele's cross was focusing on the fact that she made complimentary posts about Diddy after allegedly being essayed by him and abused by him and stuff like that. And the prosecutor's like, look, this is part of your job and stuff like that, right? She said, yes. You were responsible for promoting the Bad Boy reunion. She says, yes. Was it your job to handle all of Puff Daddy's media presence? And she said, yes. And she said, what if you didn't? And Mia says basically she'd be humiliated and made fun of, and her job would be threatened, and her job was constantly threatened all the time. Okay, so it says that my life is restricted for some audiences, so I guess, well, you know what that means. That's I'm on TikTok here, so. All right, so she goes into the video of the birthday post, and this is the infamous video that the prosecution was trying to not get let in and stuff like that. And Aqua Hydrate Water, which was the water that she was drinking at the time, Puff was the owner of that. And Revolt, obviously, she mentioned that, and we already know who owns Revolt, okay? And the prosecutor asks, why not post about the bad times? And she said, that's not what social media was for, especially back then. Nowadays, you can kind of post on social media if you're not feeling well, if you're depressed and stuff like that. But back then, you're not posting no kind of like sad stuff. Social media was definitely not for that. Okay. Why didn't you post about SA? She said, why? She said, that's not what social media was for. And she was like, so is that why you didn't post about your essay? And she said, yes. And she said, is that why? And then the defense objected to that. And she said, is that why you didn't post about Cassie's face being slammed on the bedpost? And the defense objected to that, and that was overruled. And she said, yes. Is that why you didn't post about, violence and stuff like that you witnessed? And the defense objected to that, and the judge said no, overruled. You understand what I'm saying? And the prosecutor said, why did you want to keep the person who hurt you happy? And she basically said, this is how I remain safe. The same way the prosecutor asked Deontay Nash, why were you so nice to Puff? Like when you spoke to him, when you reached out to him, why were you nice to him? And Deontay Nash said, that man's sanity was my safety. What's so hard to understand about that? Mary said, Capricorn ain't have that privilege. Paul said, hold on a second. Okay, so Mary, you said Dawn's testimony was shaky, and you said, I don't think they would have had Cassie so early in the trial if she wasn't due any date at the time. I think that had a lot to do with it, But I don't think that was the only reason why they put her up there. I think that they want to like start with a bang, and I think they're going to end with one too. That's just my opinion. This is what happens when people get their information from a game of telephone instead of paying attention to the actual case. This case was orchestrated by the feds. It's not even about Cassie. If it were about Cassie, then why would she wait until 2025 to do it? Why not do it when Diddy was really hot and had more to lose? That's a good point. Cassie does have that much pull on her. Well, basically, Cassie doesn't have that much pull on her to make a case. And Madonna is a real one for that. Yes, she was a real one for that. And Mary said, definitely had to stunt on IG. And Paul said, what was she supposed to do? Put it on her MySpace post? Of course not. It just, anyway, I agree with everything that you guys said. So she said that the dynamic would change all the time. She said that, things would be fun and great and everybody would be happy and having a wonderful time. And then all of a sudden it would just shift and, he would just become violent, right? The prosecutor asked, about remember when he allegedly first essayed her, it was on his birthday. And the prosecutor asked, why would you still continue to, celebrate him on his birthday and post, complimentary birthday messages and stuff like that. And she basically said that she was constantly just trying to put that behind her and just act like it just never happened. And she didn't want to remember the birthday that way, and she just put it to the back of her head. What would happen if you didn't keep it moving? So keep it moving was something that Puff used to say, like, don't talk about like bad stuff that happened. Like, we just gonna keep it moving. We just gonna move past that. And if she didn't quote unquote keep it moving, she would be labeled as dramatic, like you doing too much. Human Resources, fired someone named Kayla for even discussing Cassie's abuse. So apparently someone named Kayla had something to say about what was happening to Cassie, and she got the boot. So Mia was just like, I'm not mentioning anything about that. I would never discuss anything like that. And there was a situation that happened with that same one, Kayla, and then with the situation that happened with Capricorn, and Puff told Mia that she would have to testify against Kayla and Capricorn Clark. What would happen if she spoke up about the essay, and she basically said she'd be made to look like she was crazy, and she made everything up. And it's so funny because she mentioned that, and that's exactly what's happening to her. She's saying what happened, right? According to her, this is what she's alleging, and there are multiple people in this thread here, right? And just in general, I've seen that are absolutely acting like she is just making everything up and she's just lying. And that's literally what's happening now. And she basically said, she talked about the fact that she's experiencing other worlds now, like she's having other experiences, and she's completely outside of that realm. One of the turning points for her was when Cassie filed her lawsuit, and basically kind of like, wow, she did it, like she filed that, like she really came out and said that, then maybe I can say, what happened to me, right? And that's something that happens with a lot of victims of SA. And I want to be clear here, okay? Do I believe that every single person that accuses someone of SA or DV or anything is absolutely 1000% telling the truth? No. Because I'm not stupid. I believe that anytime there's, an opportunity for some type of monetary gain, you're always going to have a bad actor or bad actors who abuse the, situation, or abuse the system, or try to, come up and get a payday. But the vast majority of people who are brave enough to speak out about what has happened to them, they're not lying. You know what I mean? The vast majority, statistically, these people aren't lying. Okay, so I just want to make that clear. Why did you meet with the government so many times? She talked about the fact that she was still learning about what happened to her was wrong, like still processing that, still learning, and she's still in therapy, still unraveling a lot of the stuff that has happened to her. And the prosecutor said, did anyone from the government tell you what to say? And she said no. The only thing that the government told her was to tell the truth. And they asked her, how do you feel about public speaking? And she said, terrified. I mean, you could tell that she's not somebody who could, for instance, come up here and talk this smack. Okay, she's not like that. She's absolutely not like that. Okay. um and the prosecutor asked her, have you ever been able to talk about your essay without looking down and like just kind of like, and she said no, she's not able to, because it's the worst thing that ever happened to her, and she gets really really emotional in this time. And of course there are multiple objections, you know, and basically that was the end of that. Okay, so that was the end of the redirect. And Judge Supermanian asked Brian Still, do you have anything further? And he said no. And everybody was like, oh, thank God. Please, no more. Okay. So Mia finally got to leave the stand after several days of testimony. She finally got to leave the stand and she finally got to go home. And I know she was happy. The next witness was somebody by the name of Sylvia Oken. Okay. And Sylvia Oken is an employee who is the area director of sales and marketing at the Beverly Hills Hotel. She's been working at the Beverly Hills Hotel for 17 years. And she was previously the entertainment sales director and also previously the director of sales. Okay, so now she's the area director of sales and marketing. Again, working there for 17 years. And they basically just ask her questions about the system that they have there at the hotel. And she goes, there's something called the OPERA system, the opera system. I'm not going to lie to you, I do not know what that acronym stands for, but basically it's something that, a system that they use to keep track of the guests who frequent the hotel. Okay. And they build a profile for these guests, and a lot of the time in you know, an entertainer or a celebrity or a dignitary or whoever will stay at the hotel, they never stay obviously under their real name. There's always like you know, an alias. And basically they talked about Philip Hines was one of Sean Combs's aliases. And she talked about, well, they showed a photo of the record of for Philip Hines, and how much it cost for him to stay at the hotel and stuff like that. They asked her, are other guests allowed in the rooms? And she said yes. They asked her, did Sean Combs use other aliases? Yes, Frank White. And we know this, he liked to use that name as an alias. Sean Combs checked in. Now, they go into two separate times that he was at this hotel. One time he stayed for 2 days, and another time he stayed for 1 day. They showed a photo of the bill, like $6,500 for one, and there was another stay that it was about maybe $3,000, and you know, there were different damages and stuff like that. Obviously oil and stuff like that. They talked about the fact that they had to deep clean the hotel and stuff. And you know, she was on the stand for a very very short period of time. Under cross, you know, the prosecutor asked how long, you said you were working there for 17 years. Yes. And basically the defense asked, the defense asked, so you know, other people in the entertainment industry would use an alias, right? And she said yes, they would, you know. And that was pretty much the end of the testimony for the day. We were yawning, I was yawning, you know. I was very very upset because I really wanted to see the next people that they had coming. All right. So the next witnesses that are scheduled to appear, the next one is going to be Eddie Garcia. Okay. Now, we saw him leaving. He's somebody who um, is going to he was somebody who in the very beginning of the day went on the stand and he invoked his Fifth Amendment right or whatever, and they gave him immunity. Okay, so listen, I wanted to see his testimony so bad because anytime you have somebody who they give immunity to, you know it's going to be some tea. You know it. Okay, so we weren't able to see that today because the defense took so long with Mia, and I really, really believe that the defense was trying their hardest to run out the clock with Mia today. I know they were trying to do that. Okay, but it didn't work. So Eddie Garcia is the next one. So the judge said, so who else is coming? Like, can you give us some, names and stuff like that? And the prosecutor said, well, we kind of have to juggle some stuff logistically because we really were under the impression that Mia was going to be finished, more likely than not, like maybe an hour into testimony today, like way before 12 o'clock. And she wasn't. So there are other people who live in other states and stuff like that they just gonna have to figure out what's going on. But so the judge said, well, so can you give us an idea? So she said, yeah. So she said Eddie Garcia for sure is the next witness, and she said that Frank Piazza, Derek Ferguson, and someone named Brianna is going to be testifying, and another person by the name of Jane Doe is also going to be testifying. Now, when I heard that's the guy he paid off for the video. Which guy which one are you oh, probably, right? You talking about the one that he like literally gave the money to at the Intercontinental? Is that who you talking about? Because I know there was one guy that he was trying to pay off. That was the first one that testified. That was like it was like two in the beginning. With the exception of Cassie, like the very, very beginning. And there was one person who he tried to give money to, and the guy didn't accept it. So this is a different one. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So the Jane Doe, everybody was looking around like, wait, hold up. Which Jane Doe? Y'all talking about Gina? I was like, oh my God, are they talking about Gina? But no, apparently it's not Gina. That's going to be the Jane Doe. It's going to be someone else. Now, from what I understand, from what I'm hearing people say in the courtroom, is that this person was somebody who they saw on one of the freak off tapes when they seized all this stuff. So this is somebody who they saw on one of the freak off tapes that they, I guess, asked to come in and testify. So we're going to see. Okay, we're going to see. So I'm going to end this on Facebook, okay? If anybody has any other questions on Facebook, please put them in the comment section right now because I'm going to end it. I'm going to stay a little bit longer over here on TikTok, but if you have any questions, you have anything to say on Facebook, leave a comment, child. Don't forget to share this video, all right? And so, yeah, I honestly, I really, 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 like, I don't want Gina to come and testify. I really, really don't. I think that if Gina testifies, it would be a hot mess. And, it's not like they can't compel her to testify. It's not like they can't find her. Like, they're the feds. Of course they could find her. I think that it would be, counterproductive for them to compel Gina to testify. Do I come on at the same time? I try to come on around 8ish in general when I do go to the courthouse. Unfortunately, I'm not able to go to the courthouse every single day because I have to, work and do other stuff. I've been switching my schedule around and doing things so I can make it to the courthouse at certain times. So I'm going to try my best. I think what I'm going to try to do is switch up my stuff on Thursday. I'm going to see if I can put my classes up on the subboard because I teach aerobics classes and stuff like that. So I'm going to see if I can put my classes up on the subboard for Thursday or switch some stuff around so I can go Thursday and Friday. Okay? Hi, Stephanie. You're welcome. You're welcome. I really enjoy doing this. I wish I could go there every single day. I really, really wish I could, but I can't. But it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun. I will say this, and I've said this before. Don't listen to people that say things like, "Oh, it's a mess. It's a hot mess in the courtroom." It's not. Outside of the courtroom, outside, it is a hot mess. People are crazy. They're out there. They have signs and stuff, and people are just acting crazy outside on the street. It's a circus outside, but in the courtroom, Judge Subramanian runs a very, very tight ship, and he's not having it. Okay, so you know so yeah, so that's it. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Well, luckily, I'm sure there will be other high-profile cases to come. Yeah, I was thinking about that. Listen, Harvey Weinstein's case is like right across the street. I want to go. Listen, I wish I had more time because I would go sit in on that, and I think that's a state case, so I could have my phone. I think what I'm gonna do is maybe on Friday. Monique is coming. Monique is coming on Friday. She's coming with me. Okay, Mary, you know Monique. She's coming on Friday with me. So maybe we'll walk over there on the break. We'll go over there to the Harvey Weinstein case and see what that's giving, child. Okay, so, but anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go. Thank you so much for everybody who has commented. Oh my, yes, Harvey Weinstein, he's a despicable character, child. Okay, he is a hot mess, horrible, horrible, horrible person. Like, and I always bring him up because I think he was like one of the top most powerful men in Hollywood. Okay, like he literally was paramount, right? And if they could bring him down, if he's in there rotting away with his gangrene, private area, if you guys know what I'm talking about. He has a terrible affliction down there where he's basically rotting away down there. If they could bring him down, then yes, you know what I mean? Then other powerful men can definitely be brought down too. This is why I'm not surprised at what's happening to Puff. Do I think that there are more powerful men who are more well connected than Diddy that are doing despicable things that have not been caught and are not facing consequences? Absolutely. But do I think that just because there are other people maybe of a different complexion that have not been charged, that okay, so now we're just going to just let Diddy rock? No, that's ridiculous. Okay, that's ridiculous. All right. Thank you so much, Life with Jay. Thank you. And Lovable Libra, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I really appreciate the compliment. And I'm going to be back. Thank you so much, everybody who's followed. Everybody. Somebody had commented earlier and said that they knew how to save lives, the live broadcast on TikTok. Please message me and let me know how to do that. I'm still trying to navigate TikTok. But yeah, I'll definitely be back very, very soon. And even if I don't go live, like specifically about what I've seen in the courtroom, I'm definitely going to go live about other stuff because I have a lot to say. Okay. Thank you so much, Sonia, Alan, Scott. Thank you so much for everybody, your comments. I will see you guys next time. Thank you. And thank you everybody on Facebook. Oh yeah, so really quickly, Maureen, damn, I meant to talk about this on the live on TikTok too. So they didn't really blow her cover. So what happened was, everybody in the overflow room, because okay, so really quickly, one more time, right? So there is the main courtroom. Okay, in the main courtroom, 14 like regular people off the street. Okay, 14 like regular people off the street can just go into the main courtroom. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's about 21 members of the press, like official members of the press that has like a press pass can come in. And then there are a couple of rows or pews that are designated for Diddy's friends and family, close friends and family, right? Everyone else goes into the overflow room, okay? I'm going to say this really quickly. Before this trial is over, I'm definitely going to make it into the main courtroom at least once or twice. I know how I can do it. I just need to just do it. It's going to take a little finagling, but I'm positive that I'll be able to do it. I'm just not in a hurry to do it because I like being in the overflow room. It's less restrictive. You can sort of talk a little bit and whisper here and there, and if you need to cough, they're not looking at you crazy. If you need to get up and use the restroom, they're not looking at you crazy. You're not looking at the back of people's heads. You're actually looking at at things, So I like the overflow room. That being said, we've always seen who Mia was in the overflow room. We've always seen who she is. You know what I mean? Like, we could see her on the screen. She was not blurred out. The problem was any type of photos that she put up, like social media stuff, that was blurred. The video where she did the happy birthday, that the defense fought tooth and nail to get this video in, that video was not blurred, and that video was supposed to be blurred. Although I'm not sure. Well, actually, no. I know why it was supposed to be blurred. Because you could see, what her social media handle was and all of that stuff like that. You understand what I'm saying? But we could always see everybody in the overflow room, everybody in the main courtroom. We could all see who she was. I'm not saying who she is because technically she's still a Jane Doe. Well, not Jane Doe, but like anonymous. But it's out there. You know what I mean? Like I said, DJ Academics went ahead and doxed her over the weekend. I don't know why he keeps calling me. Okay, I'm on live. So yeah, she's out there. Now, here's the thing. There's a Jane Doe who's going to be testifying, okay, next week sometime. How is that going to work? Okay, so she's a Jane Doe. This person, I don't know if we're going to be able to see this person. Either way, I'm not blowing up nobody's spot. These people are going to be doxxed or whatever, and I'm not trying to get in trouble because it's a literal crime to know who these people are and talk about them. There are people who are doxing the jury. I think the fact that this situation, this case, the trial is these jurors are not sequestered. I feel like it's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it's like you don't want the jurors sequestered for 2 months or 2.5 months because when it's time to deliberate, you're not going to get like a good, accurate, true verdict. You're going to get, a bunch of people in the room who just want to go the F home, and they're just going to be like, whatever, okay? So you don't want that, but at the same time, these people are out in the street. People know who they are. You know what I'm saying? Who knows? Maybe somebody from Diddy's team, you think there's a chance that somebody from Diddy's team has possibly reached out to one of these jurors, right? Your personal info is out there. You know what I mean? PIs can find out, do you have student loans? Is your gas bill paid? Do you have a deferred payment on your freaking, electric bill? Are the coins tight? Could you use a couple of coins? Right? So it's like, this information it's not hard to find where people live and what they do and how much money they have. It's not hard to find out this information. So it's a double-edged sword to not have these jurors sequestered. I also think this is another part of the reason why you see so much of a concerted effort on social media as far as like bot farms and stuff like that are concerned. I think there's a big reason why you see this, because what would be the point if these jurors are sequestered? What would be the point of having all this stuff out there? I think that they're doing it because they know the jurors are, I guess the court of public opinion is a thing, but they know that the jurors are looking at stuff. Come on. You know what I'm saying? The jurors are absolutely looking at stuff. They're looking at social media. They're looking at news. They might not look on their devices because obviously that's probably being tracked. But they're absolutely seeing the stuff that's going on. You know what I mean? So, but anyway, that was just to answer your question, Maureen. If anybody else has any other questions, put it in the comments. Other than that, I'm going to get off. I have a couple of other things to do, and I'm about to turn it in for the night. I'm going to be back at the court hopefully Thursday, definitely Friday, 1000%. I'm going to be there on Friday, okay? And yeah, that's it. So thank you to everybody who shared the video. Thank you to everybody who's commented. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And yes, child, that is, listen, I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily believe in karma per se, but I this is making me kind of lean towards it, because if there's anyone who deserves that gangrene thing that's happening with Harvey Weinstein's private area, it's him. Okay. So, but anyway, thank you so much, everybody. Mwah. I'll see you guys next time. And yeah, good night.